All right. Good evening, everyone, once again. Now we are starting for today. And then I want to believe that we rounded up with the Excel and we are going to the second module of our program, which is going to be SQL. SQL. They can also call it SQL. Okay, let me project my screen. Some of the things I'm saying, I also want to type them so I see some of the spelling. Just hold on. So I'm using Notepad. Okay. I'm using Notepad to take some notes. And so when it comes to the SQL, I will not lie to you. The training is not as straightforward as the Excel. That's the truth. It's not as straightforward as Excel. For sure. Presenting. Okay, I'm using Notepad to explain some of the things, or as a notes to capture some notes. So we are on SQL. What is SQL? SQL just means structured query language. Structured query language. They can also call it what SQL, as in if you are trying to talk as a professional. Instead of calling it a SQL, they can also call it a SQL. They can say SQL language. It's still the same as SQL. So what you're talking about, okay, I know SQL or SQL language, you know that okay, you are speaking like a professional. Instead of calling it with all your mouth that SQL, you can call it SQL language. Now, it's a structured query language in the sense that it's a language of all database servers. Now, the question now is what is database? I said that this is the language of all database server. Then, what is a database? Before we begin to define database, I need to create some foundation of what leads to the database and the rest. We all know Excel. We all know Excel. Now, if you are going to define Excel, we say that Excel is just a spreadsheet. It's a spreadsheet, but it comprises of a big table. Is a spreadsheet that involve a series of columns and rows. So in Excel, there are a series of rows and columns, and then we know in Excel the columns are what being represented by what alphabets. What by the row? What by the row in Excel is being represented by what number? So Excel is a spreadsheet. Excel is a spreadsheet. And why what? My SQL, which is one of the database server, my SQL, okay, let me write it. My SQL or Microsoft SQL server, maybe server 14, for example, or Oracle, we know of the Oracle 12C, Oracle 18C, Oracle 11C. Let me just leave it like that. Oracle 11G and so on. Or IDB2, IDB2 from IBM, Postgre, they are all what? They are all what? Database server. They are just example of database servers. Yes, I'm recording it. Yeah, Mr. Yeah, I'm recording it. Okay, these are example of database server. Example of database server are the one I listed below. Now, imagine that you now put Excel as one of these category. Do you understand? Because Excel is an application. These are all applications. So the point here is that Excel does not fall into these categories. Excel is trying to do what we are using Excel as the way we use some of these database server, but they are not of the same category. So Excel is far, far lower than all these server. Excel is just a spreadsheet. Whereby any of this one, they are what? A database server. And what is a database server? So when we are defining a database server, we will be defining a database server from the angle of what? We said that what is an RDBMS. Any database server perform what? The major function of a database server is what? They are what? RDBMS. Then what is the RDBMS? We can say what is what? They are all what? Relational database management system. So any of this one above is what is an RDBMS. Is a relational database management system, and they are applications. They are not just applications. They are what the backbone of IT. So any relational database software is what is the backbone of IT. And we all know what IT is today. We said that IT is what is an information technology. Now, if IT is, we know all know IT as what? Information technology. But before it becomes information technology, something leads to the information technology. Actually, it started from what? Data. Data is the one that give way or that give back to what? Information. So our data lead to information. Now, we can say that without data there is no IT. So without data there is no what IT is. Because we know of IT today as what? Information tech. But what? Data itself is the one that leads to the information. A data is just like what? We can define a data as what? Unprocessed, unprocessed facts. Do you understand that? So we can define a data as that data is what? Unprocessed facts. Whereby or whereas information itself is what? Is okay, let me put it in there. Is a process because is a process is a process what? Facts. So that information is what? Is a process fact. Means that he has passed through some stages. Okay, another way I can explain this is that let's look at let me use example of a woman that wants to cook soup. At least you should go to the market to pick some vegetables, maybe okay, pepper, atarodo, tomato, right? Bawa, maggi, maybe palm oil or groundnut oil. All the necessary items to cook that soup. And for us to have a finished soup, that must be processed. All those items must pass through what processes, in the sense that they cannot just pack everything like that. They have to grind them and then put them on fire. Add all those items one after the other. Then after a while, we have the soup or we have the food. That's the way data is. As data are just those raw materials that we pick from different places or from a particular source and we process it to become something meaningful. So that's what now lead to what? Information tech. But without data, there is no information technology. And there are a lot of data around us, billions of data around us. So there are data that can be what? Structured. We have data that can be what? Structured. And we also have what data that are what? Unstructured. And any database server, what they are performing on, they are helping us to structurize our data. So any of this server is helping us to structurize our data for us to be able to arrange our data according to what we need. Do you get that? That is any of these database server. That's what they are doing. Help us to structurize our data. And also we still have some technology that still handle what? Unstructured data. IT is big. We have some technology that we use for what? To handle what? Unstructured data. But With my years of experience, I realize that there is no data, whether it's unstructured. The unstructured data will still pass through one way of structurizing it or the other. And they let us know that some of these unstructured data they are out there, especially in all our social medias like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, mention the other ones. Do you understand that? They will tell us that there are a lot of unstructured data flown in our social media. And if you look at it, there is no way they're still what? They still structurized one way or the other. But there is technology to handle such an environment. Environment of what? Unstructured data. So if you are going to handle, okay, let me just keep it there. For us to be able to handle unstructured data, don't forget all this database server, they are what? To structurize our data so it can become something meaningful. Part of the structurizing it is that we are processing it so that it can turn to what? Information. Do you get that? But we have unstructured data also, and the language or technology to handle the unstructured data, you'll be hearing something like a JSON. So I'm mentioning all these things. Maybe we've already come across them, or later on we might be able to hear them, come across them. You must have heard something like JSON. You must have heard something like what? MongoDB. MongoDB is a database server, but is part mainly for what? To handle what? Unstructured data. While by all these one above, they are for what? Structured data. So let me just put it like this, that some of our database server over here, they are for what? To structurize our data. Structured. To structurize our data. To structure our data. Whereas this one below here, all this JSON and the rest, they are for what? Unstructured data. That's the technology to handle what? Unstructured data. Do you understand that? Now, now let's now look at it. When we define SQL, we say SQL is what? Is a structured query language. And we mentioned that some of the database servers that are listed out here, they are more than this. They are for what? To structure our data. So what it simply means is that this language, SQL or SQL, you can use it in any of these server. So what actually happens is that if you use one server, one database server to learn SQL, now you can still run the same query in any of these one that I've listed out, plus the other one I did not mention. So fact that they are what? Application for structure to handle structured data. So further, there are database applications to handle what? Structured data. So your SQL we're about to learn or that we are in right now, we can run the same command in any of these. Do you understand me? Now, but for our training, for the sake of our training, we'll be using one of these to learn the SQL. And we'll be using my SQL. Do you understand that? So I'll be using my SQL. My SQL is a database server. And the reason I choose my SQL is that sometimes to set up my SQL is very easy to install my SQL. In fact, to have something that you can easily use. So the installation doesn't take time. It's not as technical as this one or as Oracle or the other one. Even to Postgre too is somehow similar, but working around with Postgre too also has its own technicality. But my SQL is one of the popular database server. Now, let me not tell you something. We've been visiting websites. Some of the websites that we've been working with, you will find out that maybe we are filling a form online, or you visit a site, you sign up, you log in. So any website that you log in, that you are signing up to use, it has one form of database server behind the scene that is working behind the scene. That is it. Any website I've mentioned, but now it's not only website. You cannot limit it to only websites. Any application that you are using that you fill form or you enter input value on them, that application is using one form of database or the other. Whether it's banking app, whether it's school portal, whether it's hospital management system, whether the one they are using for the production, ERP, enterprise resources planning applications, mentioning any software that you use that take input from the user in the sense that when you click the app, you see one form or the other, and they now design it that okay, fill this information or provide this information. It has one database or the other. Whether it's Nigeria Immigration Services or NIN that we all know here, whether the one for international passports, just mention it. It has one form of database. Without it, there is no way that applications can perform. It cannot be interactive. So we call it what it cannot perform dynamically. It cannot have dynamic features. And you can see that data or database server is the backbone of IT. So there is no software out there that does not use one of the database server. Even some of the applications we are using on our mobile phone, they all have their own database configuration. That when they are developing the app, it has one database behind that's storing the information. Whether now we are using what? Google Meet for our training. We also use what? WhatsApp to disseminate information. All this technology has one database behind the scene, behind them. Chat. A database server is very important. Do you understand that? But for you to work with a database server, you must understand its language, which is what? SQL. SQL is the language of database server. And is for what? Structured is for structured database server. Do you understand? That is SQL, not for unstructured database server. The one for unstructured database server, the language is what JSON. JSON just means JavaScript object notation. That is the word coming of JSON. JavaScript object notation. MongoDB is the database to handle unstructured data. Okay, all these things, in case you hear of them or you must have heard of them. Okay, I just let me just chip in. All right. Now, another thing I want you to do research about, I will be writing some tests. Yeah, then I will try as much as possible to explain them or in form of question and answer. I'll be asking the question, then I will try as much as possible to explain it. Also, I want you to go online and do your own work, your own research too. Do you understand that? So there are some times that I've mentioned some of the terminologies from what I've explained, but there are other things that we need to know. For us to be able to know how data really work, how to structure a data, there is something we must know or we must understand clearly. It's called data. Sorry, let me pause this or stop this video and start it all over again just to break it down so it will be easy for me to upload. Okay.